We are moving into rotations, which would be our third and final type of transformation that we are going to discuss in chapter 11. Rotations, at this point, they might seem easier, but it's kind of because you've already been working with some rules. I don't know that they're really any easier than anything else, but you're already familiar with how to make a rule work. So rotations have several rules, but it's kind of straightforward. So remember, a rotation is a transformation that turns, whoops, no, I did want to do that. Around a given point. For us, we're going to turn around the origin. Okay, you can rotate around any point. We could rotate around here. Okay, but for us in this class, so we figure out what we're doing, we're going to rotate around the origin, which remember is the point 0, 0. So your problems will say that it's going to rotate however way, whatever, around the origin or about the origin. For some reason we use about instead of around. And just know that's 0, 0, and that's pretty much what all of ours are going to do. So hopefully you've written this down. If not, pause, write it down. This is just a visual to remember that clockwise is going to the right. Counterclockwise, which actually doesn't say this on here, counterclockwise, or counterclockwise, you'll say CC sometimes, is going left. So think about on a clock, the hands move to the right, so that's clockwise. Counterclockwise would be backwards from the way the clock moves. Okay? And so if we're going to go 90 degrees, there should be a little degree sign there, clockwise, that means we're going to move from one quadrant to the next. Okay? So 90 degrees each time we move to another quadrant. If we were moving from here all the way around to here, that would be 90 plus 90, or 180. Okay. If you're moving all three quadrants clockwise, then it would be 270 clockwise, which would be the same thing as if you were going counterclockwise 90 degrees. Okay? So clockwise 270 is the same thing as counterclockwise 90 degrees. We're going to talk about this more in a minute. You don't need to write this down unless you think it's going to help you. Okay? So here are our rules that we need to make sure we write down. So pause and write those down. Okay? Maybe draw yourself a little clock to remind you clockwise and counterclockwise. Okay? And while you're pausing and writing that down, I'm going to erase all of this that I just scribbled. Okay? So when we go 90 degrees counterclockwise, whoops, 90 degrees, whoa, I don't know what I just did. There we go. 90 degrees counterclockwise, it's the same thing as 270 degrees counterclockwise. So that's why you'll notice in your rules here, you actually have two things, because it's the same thing. And we don't ever go 360 because that basically didn't move, okay? So you'll notice that 180 degrees, no matter which way you go, it's going to be the same rule. Okay, but you need to make sure you're paying attention. Are you going 90 degrees counterclockwise, or are you going 90 degrees clockwise? Because it's going to change which rule you look at. Okay, so again, if you haven't already, pause and write this down because it's huge. It's a big deal. Okay, so let's do some examples. So you'll notice we're going to go 90 degrees counterclockwise. So 90 degrees counterclockwise. So go back to your rules that you wrote down and look for which one of these is 90 degrees counterclockwise. So we're going to use this rule right here. So we're going to write out our rule every time. Write out your rules. And I don't have it memorized, so I have to go back and look. Negative y, x. Usually by the time we're done with chapter 11, I have them memorized, and then I forget them again until the next year I teach it. So that's our rule. Okay, so we don't even have a picture. All we have is our coordinates, but that's all we need. So we're going to take negative 5, 0 for f and make f prime, right? And so we're going to switch them. We're going to switch to where they go. Okay, so x becomes y and doesn't change. Notice there's no sign there, so it doesn't change. It just moves. And then 0 is going to move over to the y and change signs. But 0, of course, is just 0. If you were to add the negative 0, I wouldn't mark that wrong, okay? So let's try now g. So g prime, we're going to take our x and we're going to move it to the y spot. And, we're going to take our x and move it to the y spot and not change it. We're just moving it, okay? And then the y, we're going to move it to the x spot, but we're going to change the sign. It's positive and it becomes negative. Okay? And then our h prime is we take our x, leave it the way it is, move it to the y spot. Okay? Take our y, move it to the x spot, but change the sign. Here it's positive, here it needs to be negative. Let's do some more examples. This is 180 degrees. Notice it doesn't say counterclockwise or clockwise because it doesn't matter. The rule is the same no matter what. And the rule is xy becomes negative y, negative, no, I did that backwards on. It's just negative x, negative y. Okay. See, again, I don't have them memorized and I don't have them sitting here next to me either. Negative x, negative y. Or opposite x, opposite y. So nothing changed places, but both of them have to change signs. Okay, so let's do a prime. We're gonna leave x and y where they are, but we have to change their sign. So they're negative, so we need to make them positive. Okay, same thing with b. They're negative, they stay x and stay y, but their sign has to change. Okay, so positive 5, positive 2. And then c prime, they're both negative, so they both become positive. I think I have more examples, I hope. Oh, good, I have more examples. So, 90 degrees clockwise, right? So go back to where you wrote it down. 90 degrees clockwise is this one, this rule right here. So y, negative x. Don't forget the x, y becomes y, negative x. Okay, so now we're going to take our d and make d prime. So we have to switch, right? So x becomes y and y becomes x. Okay, but our x has to change its sign. Okay, so our x becomes our y, but it has to change its sign. So negative 5 becomes 5. And then our y just moves but doesn't change at all. So it's still negative 3. E prime, we're going to take our x and move it and change the sign. So negative 5 becomes positive 5 in the y spot. And our y doesn't change, so 1 stays 1. I'm going to move this over here. F prime, okay, so our x, this x becomes our y, right? So, and we have to change the sign. So negative 2 becomes positive 2, and our y doesn't change. It's just negative 3. I think that's my last example. It is. So make sure you are asking questions in class.